Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. Today we're doing a reading recommendation for you, Justice League The Nail. Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent. I want to talk a little bit today about this book right here. This is Justice League The Nail, written by Alan Davis, art by Alan Davis, and inks by Mark Farmer. This book came out a number of years ago, I believe in the 90s. It's technically an Elseworlds tale, as you'll see with this little star in the corner. Now, what that means is, 10, 15, 20 years ago, DC had a line of Elseworlds books, and we talked about Gotham by Gaslight in that animated movie review I did a few months ago. That was the first one. This is one of the more successful, memorable ones, as it is 3 issues long. They're double-sized issues. They're all 40 pages rather than 20 or 22. So it's basically like a 6-issue trade paperback, but on the back it says JLA The Nail 1 through 3. But this is more memorable because it's actually collected, and it's very good, and it's all, it has been reprinted recently along with its sequel, Another Nail, which is the sequel to this. They printed them together, and I think they called it like the Nail Complete Edition. Now, I have not read all of Another Nail yet. I've read 2 of the 3 books, but so far it is clear that Another Nail is not as good as the originator here. So we'll just talk about this one. So, in Elseworlds, what is in Elseworlds? Well, it's an alternate universe. It's an alternate tale of the DC universe. So, similar to Marvel's What If line, sometimes it's an entirely different premise, where it's Batman in Victorian England, or Superman grows up to be Batman in the Wayne family or something, or Bruce Wayne gets a Green Lantern ring, or it's just an entirely different universe, stuff like that. This here is more like a Marvel What If tale in that it's what if Superman landed and was never found by Jonathan and Martha Kent, was never raised by the men and women, the man and woman we know raised him to be such a nice, upstanding young man and a hero, and instill in him all the American values that caused him to become Superman. What if? So that is what happens here. That's the premise here. And so basically, this is not a spoiler or anything like that. It's happens in the first few pages. Jonathan and Martha Kent are trucking along in their truck on the day that Superman is coming to Earth, and then we find out that they are distracted, or they get a flat tire on the way to wherever they're going. I think they're going into Smallville, into town, and they get a flat tire due to a nail. So because of that nail, they say, well, we didn't get out of the house, or didn't get very far. Let's go ahead and turn around and go back home, try and work on making our own babies and stuff like that. So they turn around, and then you see the Superman rocket coming in the corner and, landing in the field. Now, you find out much, much later in this book where Superman landed, but everything else in the DC universe continues to happen the way it happened historically. There is a Green Lantern, there is a Batman, there is an Aquaman, there's a Flash, there's a Martian Manhunter, there's an Atom, there's a Hawkman and Hawkgirl, there's a Justice League. And this is using the Barry Kitson, Mark Waid Justice League Year 1 run as their basis for the Justice League here. There's an Outsiders, there's a Metamorpho, stuff like that, but it's just how does the League operate without a Superman, without knowing one exists, kind of thing. Are they better? Are they worse? Are they more vulnerable? And this certainly proves, or at least it's designed to tell a story in such that it shows how interesting a DC universe is without Superman, but also why the DC universe needs a Superman. It shows what happens, terrible things happen to Batman in the first issue here. Terrible, terrible things that, it's just, as a Batman fan, it's heart-wrenching to see what he goes through. And it doesn't really posit to say that Superman could have intervened, but he could have. Or Superman might have been there to pull him back from the edge, where Batman goes after that happens in the first issue. So it's a very, very cool story. Certainly does give more time to the other members of the Justice League. Everybody's pretty split evenly in terms of screen time or story time, as it were. Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, The Flash, the Atom, all get pretty meaty storylines. Aquaman and Hawkgirl, I think, are more supporting characters, whereas the ones I just named are kind of like major characters. Martian Manhunter comes into the play, so it kind of looks at all the characters and says, what would happen to this guy, what would happen to this guy. Also, too, the most interesting thing about this book as well is since there's no Superman, there is no superhero in Metropolis in the DC universe. So you have Lex Luthor, he becomes mayor, and he institutes like a no metahuman policy, so no superpowers in his city. And he's instituting these rules, and it's kind of like a law and order type society within the United States, martial law, that kind of thing. And it's a commentary on, without Superman and these more restrictive rules, how society has turned in Metropolis versus the rest of the states, and how that type of society is becoming, with the rising super threats like Amazo, who's here on the cover, right here by the Flash, all these rising super threats, how interesting that idea of a no metahumans, no superpowers rule is, and how that is seeping into the rest of the United States and stuff like that. Jimmy Olsen's in this book. That was very interesting. Almost, kind of sort of the Eradicator makes an appearance also. At the very end, wearing the Man of Steel Krypton type uniform that was developed by John Byrne in the 80s. That's not giving anything away, but that was very interesting to see what happens here. Also, I'm just going to loan this to Jim. This is a very good book because it gives kind of an overview of the DC universe without getting too complicated. Just flip to a page. Here's Deadman, the Spectre, and Etrigan, and Dr. Fate, and the Phantom Stranger. It doesn't really tell them what they do, but it gives a little bit of a nibble on a lot of characters in the DC universe for any person new to the DC universe to say, oh, I'm interested in this guy. Where are his stories? I'm interested in the Stranger. Where's his stories? Phantom Stranger, that kind of stuff. So a very good primer. So if you're new to the DC universe, I would recommend this book. Pick it up. This is the classic version of the characters. This is everything pre-New 52, post-Crisis, in the 80s, in the 90s. But they're all their Silver Age incarnations. So as if the characters were living in the comic books in the 1960s and 70s. Batman's got the yellow oval on his chest. The Joker has a classic look. He's not all deformed or anything like that, like he's in the comics now. This is the classic version of the characters, like you would see on a merchandise or a licensing deal or stuff like that. So, very, very good book. Very dense read. It will take you a while to read this. There's a lot going on, but you've got to say something. I mean, that's a testament to the writing by Alan Davis, but it's also a testament to the art by Alan Davis. So Alan Davis, if you don't know, I think he's a British writer-artist. Got his start over in Marvel UK, I believe, and doing some books over there. Camelot 2000, I want to say he did, or 3000. And then this isn't his big debut or anything, but this is one of the pieces of works that he's most well known for because it's so good. His draftmanship is just classic superhero 70s and 80s style. It's just classic stuff. So pick up The Nail if you liked it, if you want to read more about it. And if you like it a lot, I can't really recommend Another Nail just quite yet. 2 issues in Another Nail, they haven't really spelled out who the threat is. It's kind of taken the same route that this book did. You didn't really know who the threat was until the very last issue. But the way this book happened was a lot more interesting to read than Another Nail, which is kind of the same premise of what happens when there's no Superman, whereas, in that book, Superman's, is there, but he's taking the week off. And that's not really as interesting as what if there's no Superman yet, which is the premise of this book. So, The Nail, Justice League, pick it up. Great book. 4.5 out of 5 stars if I had to give it a rating. I just reread this again for the second time on Comixology and then realized I had already picked it up in physical format here. But it's a great book, so check it out. Thanks, guys. And please like, comment, subscribe to the video. Let me know what your favorite Justice League story is and what did you like about this book, what didn't you like it. And I will see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.